Hey there, coaches. I'm Rich Prado, owner of Play in School and host of Travel Ball Talk, where I talk to travel ball coaches from the best organizations about the current and future state of travel baseball. Today we head to Boston, Massachusetts to meet with Dan Sullivan, GM of the Nokona Baseball Club. You've probably heard of the Nokona Gloves, but wait until you hear the story of how they ended up forming a partnership. I hope you enjoy this episode of Travel Ball Talk. But before we get to today's show, coaches, what if there was a drop-dead simple platform that put all of your players' up-to-date data and videos at your fingertips? What if that platform cost your families less than a trip to Starbucks each month? Good news, I've just built it. Our new player profile platform might be the cleanest and simplest way to have all of your players maintain their own data and film in one place. For full details and to set up a demo, visit playinschool.com/platform. Now on to the show. All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm your host, Rich Prado, owner of Play in School. Today we're heading up to the greater Boston metro area to visit with Dan Sullivan from Nokona Baseball. This should be a fun conversation. Nokona is, for those of you guys know, they're associated with, named after a pretty cool glove company, which I'm kind of excited to learn more about and hear about. So, Dan, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Rich. Appreciate you reaching out and talking about our organization.
You got it. I tell you what, before you tell us all about the silkiest, smoothest, softest gloves on earth, would you mind spending just a couple minutes introducing yourself to the listeners and tell us a little bit about your baseball background? No need to go all the way back to T-ball, but give us the brief bio, and then switch over and kind of give us the full details on Nokona.
Yeah, so I've been involved with our organization, Nokona Baseball, for the last dozen years. We started as a program in 2005, so it's ongoing 16 years now, and my role has evolved over that time from starting off as a coach in the organization and then evolving into becoming a general manager at our facility that we opened up 6 years ago in Ashland, Mass. And has kind of taken on many hats in terms of doing our recruiting, coaching, and overseeing the whole operation. So as soon as I was a UConn grad, and I went into coaching right immediately after graduating college at the high school level and the Legion level, and was approached by Jeff Cuneo, who is our principal owner at Nokona, about coaching at the club level. Was interested and ended up being a great fit on both of our ends, and it's kind of evolved into something special in terms of what we've created up here.
Did you play for Coach Penders up at UConn?
I did not. No, I did not.
He came in. He came in a little after you.
I'm a better coach than I was a player.
So you got to tell the story about the Nokona the baseball organization's relationship with the glove company, Nokona.
Yeah, so that started off right in 2005 when Jeff Cuneo had the idea of creating a club baseball team. He had two sons that were young guys at the time that were looking to play more than just town ball, and there wasn't a whole lot offered up here at the time in terms of club baseball. It's since grown and now it's kind of out of control in terms of how many teams there are, but there wasn't a whole lot offered back then. and he happened to be on a flight coming back from Texas, and ended up sitting next to one of the owners of the Nokona Glove Company, and they were floating ideas off each other and created a relationship, and we've been lucky enough to have that partnership with them since that time now.
Literally just a chance encounter because two people bought plane tickets and got sat next to each other on a plane is how this relationship formed. That's incredible.
Incredible. And thankfully it was a good partnership. Two guys that, valued quality and wanted a project on the side of, Jeff has his own real job going on. And then obviously Nokona had their gloves they've had the gloves for many years, but they were interested in forming a partnership with us, and it certainly blossomed over the years, going from one team that first year to now having 15, 16 teams. So
I just pulled up the glove company's website, which is just Nokona.com, which is probably a good reminder for me to mention that y'all's website, for anybody who's listening, that you want to find out more about Nokona baseball, is you can go to NokonaBaseballClub.com or over on Twitter at Nokona_baseball. But back to the glove company, I didn't realize it. There's apparently a town in Texas named Nokona. So sounds like this.
With a C, though.
With a C, though. You're right, with a C. So this company is based in Texas to this day, I'm assuming?
They are, yep.
This is an unusual partnership that has lasted, and sounds like it's been quite a great relationship for y'all.
Yeah, it's they kind of let us do our own thing, and so they certainly check in and see how it's going, and our kids are able to get Nokona gloves and play with the quality product on the field, and it certainly benefits us, along with not just the gloves, but the branding sake as well. And on their end, we put out a quality product and have grown not only in the New England area, but are sending kids all around the country to play baseball. So we think we're doing our part on our end as well, and so it's been like I said, a really good relationship.
Well, back to your website for a second, and the first thing I see is looks like one of your guys just signed a big league contract, but there's a twist. He signed it with the NFL. Wait, where'd it go? How about that? I love it. Gallagher signs with Baltimore Ravens. That's awesome. Yeah. What position did this kid play for you guys?
So he played for us from 10 years old to 17 years old, and he was a really highly rated baseball player. Most of those ranking deals had him as the one or two top kid in New England. He actually won the PG Home Run Derby down in Florida one year too. He was a third baseman and right-handed pitcher.
Okay.
And he had the option of playing really big-time college baseball or really big-time college football, just because he was just such a talent. Ended up choosing the football route at Northwestern and became 3-time All-Big Ten player there at linebacker. And now is on to his NFL career.
The next spot I checked out on your site here is the alumni page, and I went to it. I mean, listen, all the guys I have on this podcast run organizations that place all their guys all over the country, just like you guys. But the thing about where you guys are located in Boston, for anybody who's been underneath a rock, is the amount of colleges within a stone's throw of you is just off the charts. I'm looking at the list here, and you've got some bigger schools like a University of Maryland on here. I'm looking at the 2020 class, but then you got a bunch of schools right there in your backyard where guys are going, right? So, this idea of proximity and where you live and who you're around can have such an upside for these kids. I'm looking at right off the bat, Harvard, Northeastern, Williams, Babson, Tufts, St. Joseph's in Maine, right there in New England. But then also I'm picking up a little high academic vibe. I'm seeing NYU on here again. Back to Tufts and Williams and Franklin Pierce and Quinnipiac, Harvard. Is this an intentional thing? We actually just had Andy Bradley he runs Bradley Baseball Academia out of DC, and again, it's like he's got a niche of high academic guys. Like that's sort of what he's known for. Is this something you guys are doing intentionally, or is this just we live in Boston and Boston values their education and the family value education, and
Well, that's certainly part of it, but yeah, I mean, it definitely has become a little bit of a niche for us, and it's really in terms of what type of kids and families that we want in our program, and that goes down to kids they're working hard, not just on the field, but in the classroom, and not just having quality baseball players, but having quality people involved. And that's led to certainly a number of kids going to the high academic route, whether it is at the Division I level or if it's the Division III level. Our goal for any of the kids that pass through our program is to find the right fit for them. And I know you have the 2020 list in front of you, and if it's Harvard or Dartmouth at the Division I level, high academic, that makes sense, then that's terrific. If it's a Power 5 conference team with Pittsburgh or Maryland that makes sense for the kid, then that's terrific. And if it's a Division II or Division III school, whether it's on the high academic side or really quality baseball side, our goal is always just making sure the kid is in the right place when he's leaving us. This group that we have right now that's at the 17-year-old level, our current juniors, they're all over the map in terms of, we got one kid going to Pepperdine, one kid going to Michigan, and then there's guys that are committed locally with Northeastern and Merrimack, and so wherever the kid is best fit, then that's where we want to end up.
All right. Normally I would move on from there, but I'd actually had now that you mentioned it, I had seen that kid had committed to Pepperdine, and I'm not terribly interested in him personally, but I am curious when I see a commitment from a kid from New England heading to California. I'm kind of curious, and my mind immediately goes to, I bet there's a story. I bet is there a family connection on the West Coast? I'm sure the kid is really, really good, but the state of California is not in the import business of good baseball players. They're in the export business because they have too many of them. So I'm kind of curious, is there like a easy story that you can put your finger on as to like what explains how a kid ends up making that commitment from the not just East Coast but New England down to a California school? Well,
as you know, this past summer was a very difficult year in the recruiting world just because of all the COVID stuff and coaches not being able to get out and see guys live. And so that particular player, shortstop, he was involved. He got selected to go to the PBR Futures games in Pennsylvania, and so those kids in that event was really good for. We had 6 guys there this past year, and it was big in terms of being able to be on that national stage in a year where that wasn't available to kids. They had happened to recruit one of our players, a pitcher that ended up at Harvard a few years back. They had recruited him when we were able to do our normal travel, and they had seen him pitch. So their coaching staff got in touch with me that week. We had already had a relationship.
Huge.
And the thing that kind of helped put it over the top is we filmed every at-bat, every pitch thrown last summer to make sure that even though coaches couldn't be there at our games, that we had a full catalog of at-bats, pitches, anything a college coach needed over the course of last summer. We wanted to have at their disposal and have the kids have that at their disposal, so that not only were they seeing him in an event that they got to see him play in a quote-unquote live game, I was able to send them the rest of his summer and say, yeah, this is what he does every week. This isn't just a 3-day thing.
Awesome. That's awesome. Very good. Very good. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's transition over to this new sort of standard set of questions I've been asking coaches recently. I start with a little bit of a softball. I think we got you warmed up. I think we got you loosened up for the first few minutes, but this is still a little bit of a warm up period. So, all right, the first question out the gate, and I sent these to you ahead, so hopefully you got one in mind or multiple. What book do you think every coach should read?
So I thought it was an interesting question when you sent it, and the one that I go back to and read and reread is John Wooden's book, and that he wrote with Steve Jameson. And I thought, in terms of the coaching world, it has very little to do with X's and O's or how to shoot a basketball or swing a baseball bat. That has its place in coaching, certainly, but the reason I like the Wooden book is it really deals with everything else that happens in coaching and in terms of sharing ideas and how he treated players and different stories that you can pick up little things and little tidbits of, okay, this is a good way of dealing with a situation or seeing how he did it at such a high quality level for such a long time.
Now, you said that Wooden is famous for his pyramid of success, but you're specifically talking about the one he did with Steve Jameson, I think you said, and I just pulled it up. I'm seeing a couple different covers, but I think it's the leadership game plan for success. Does that sound? There's that one, or there's basically a couple of them where Wooden with Jameson spoke on leadership. So pretty solid stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And for a guy it's really just his notebook, and
that's cool.
Little things that came up that he jotted down that made a difference in terms of how he carried himself and made his players carry themselves.
Love it. I wasn't expecting John Wooden name drop on the pod today. All right, second question: what regret or failure changed the way you coach for the better?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing early in my coaching career, when I started coaching high school baseball and Legion baseball, I was lucky to be involved with a number of talented kids, but didn't really understand how the recruiting world worked or how to help those kids when I was in my early 20s. And seeing those kids kind of pass through and not necessarily get the recognition or that they deserved, and being able to help them get to the proper next step in their career. It was really a big learning experience and learning curve for me, and I really just started doing it just cold turkey. I just started cold calling coaches.
Yeah.
And it really started with the kid we were talking about when I got involved with club baseball, the kid we were talking about earlier, Blake Gallagher, who ended up obviously choosing football, but he had a number of teammates that we ended up getting to the Division I level. Timmy Simos, who just graduated from Army, Chris McGrory just graduated from Harvard, Andrew Flint at Elon. We had a really talented group of kids, and I knew very few people at the time, but I knew that I had great kids and I had really talented baseball players. And from my previous experience and not being able to help guys the way I would have hoped to early in my career, I kind of jumped 2 feet into the situation and said, I don't care if these guys know who I am. They need to know who my players are. And that really helped kind of jumpstart the recruiting world for us. And it certainly helps to have those good players, but it is also finding those homes for the Division II and Division III players that were outstanding high school baseball players in their own right. And just I certainly took from early in my career of just trying to go the extra step for kids and learn kind of how to do it on the fly.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, this story plus the story about your kid going to Pepperdine, which really started with a kid that ended up going to Harvard before that kid, really hammers home the importance of your network. But for that young guy, or maybe young guy is not the right, that guy who's just getting into this space, could be an older guy, but you're just getting into the recruiting space. You gotta, well, you don't have to. You can do whatever you want. But my suggestion is you communicate with these college coaches from a position of being very humble and looking for what they see, asking their opinion versus trying to shove your opinions down people's throats. Because these guys their livelihood is, on the line based on who they bring in or don't bring in, right? So it's kind of a bigger deal for them in a way, because they could get fired if they bring in a bunch of kids that they just, some travel ball coach just promises them that this kid's the best there's ever been. But like the first kid that you try to put in front of a college coach, if it's not the right fit, that's okay. And it happened in this circumstance. That first kid you were telling about ends up at Harvard, but guess what? You had built the relationship, and then the next time around, oh, by the way, Pepperdine, I got a guy who might be a fit for you this time. Without question. Had you just gone in hard, guns blazing, and kind of blew your credibility, that chance wouldn't have been available to this next kid. So it's about relationships, and you don't want to be having people cross you off your list or cross your organization off your list, because then it ends up crossing dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of kids off their list the next year. So very cool how that.
Yeah, and I think the next step to that is, and I 1,000% agree with you. And I think the next step to it is when those kids do get, if a college coach does say, yeah, well, know what, we like them, we're gonna go with them. The thing that we have confidence in our organization is if the kid doesn't become an all-conference player for a particular school, the type of kids that are playing for us are going to be really high character guys in their organization. So maybe the kid doesn't hit 350, but he's going to be a really good part of their operation for 4 years. And so, do we want them all to be really good baseball players? Certainly. Do we want, keep moving on to that next level? Certainly. But at the same time, I can speak with confidence to college coaches in terms of saying, hey, didn't work out, but how is he as a teammate? How is he, at practice?
Because that does impact the organization's reputation. If a kid goes to a school and he's a cut up, guess what? Now all of a sudden they think that every kid out of that organization's a cut up. Right or wrong, it happens. All right, next question. Talking about Nokona, how much midweek practice do you guys run, and is it and break it down like team or individual workouts? Obviously, we're probably talking outside of the high school season.
Yeah, so during the wintertime, we have our indoor space. I would say about 85% of the kids in our organization are coming and doing individual work with coaches during the week, one-on-one work at least once, if not twice a week, along with a team practice at least once a week, if not twice. So we see the kids quite a bit, and the real only exceptions to that are guys that are just a little outside of our area, that are more summertime guys. That we have all New England players. We're not a program that grabs a kid from Tennessee or grabs a kid from Alabama to go do a tournament. Mm-hmm. It's all homegrown guys. But we certainly do have some guys that travel a little bit further than others, mm-hmm. that we don't get as much access to in terms of doing the individual stuff with them. But we have a lot of dedicated ball players that are in our facility, multiple times a week. And one of the deals that we have with our guys outside of COVID times is they have access to our facility whenever they want. So if they want to come in and hit for free, they just walk in the door and hit. They need to get their throwing program in, they come in and get it done. So it's a little bit of, a perk for our guys in terms of, if you want to put the work in, the space is available to you, come in and get it done.
That's awesome. Next question. What's the one piece of advice you'd give someone that is just starting a travel organization, or opening a facility? Sounds like you have experience on both sides. So take it either direction.
I think the biggest thing is surrounding yourself with quality people and quality coaches. If you have quality people in charge of the operation and are hiring quality coaches, then you're going to end up with a good product. And you want to have those like-minded people that are carrying the same message, because then you have some true continuity in the operation, and you're gonna the byproduct will be good baseball, obviously.
Yeah.
But you're also going to be able to run things really smoothly. Yeah. So I think it starts with the people who are running it, and making sure the quality control is at its peak. And then from there on the facility side, it's making sure you have a space that makes sense for what you're trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. A baseball facility sits vacant a certain amount of time, not only every day.
Every day.
And so the space has got to make sense, where you're not crushing your own budget, mm-hmm. but also when it is time to get that work in, we have enough space to make sure we're able to do any drill we want to do, or any team practice that needs to go on. And then at our place, we have a weight room here that gets used all the time to do all the off the field stuff that needs to get done to help their game as well.
Awesome. I tell you, man, that the square footage is an easy place. It's a pitfall, right? It's easy to think bigger is better, right? So if 1,000 square feet is good, then 50,000 square feet must be way better, and it's not always the case. Not always the case. Some of the best facilities, and I've been in hundreds of them, are not the 70,000 square foot with full playable indoor infields and 20 cages. Some of the best ones are 5,000 square feet with a handful of cages and a handful of pitching tunnels. From from an operational standpoint, from a financial standpoint, from a business standpoint.
Yeah, and you want to make sure not only you're setting yourself up, on the field, but you want to make sure you're setting yourself up, in terms of your books too, and not, getting too big for your britches in terms of space that might not be used a certain amount of time, like I said.
No doubt.
Next time you're up in Boston, you have to stop by and see our place. Next time you're up here,
I definitely will. Gosh, I think I should do a whole series on setting up your facility for success. Anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole today. All right, last question here. What one change could be made to travel baseball that would have the biggest positive impact? If you had a magic wand and could change one thing that would just have tremendous positive impact, is there something? What would you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things. I think that at the little guy age groups, it's incredibly watered down, and it's not really what club baseball should be. It's a lot of pay to play out there. And so there's a great disparity in terms of, what different organizations are trying to get out of a weekend of games or, going to a tournament. So I think at the little guy age group, it's just really watered down. You see a poor product if you go down to a little league field where you have the better kids aren't even throwing in their own towns; they're just throwing on the weekends. And even players, 8 and 9 are still playing on some club baseball team that, probably is not the best thing for anybody involved.
Mm-hmm.
But I certainly, on the flip side of that, if kids want to play more baseball, that's a good thing. With the older guys, it comes down to, tournaments, and there's not a great centralized force of, hey, this is a good tournament to go to because there's going to be college coaches there, because you can go down to Georgia and play one game at Lake Point and then be playing 5 games an hour away from everybody else, which you feel like you have to go do some of those tournaments. Certainly, the kids want to be down there. It does get them some exposure if you have the right guys on your team, but there's certainly some pitfalls to that as well. And then the last thing is, I would say that, and I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier in terms of how we operate, is the jumping around from organization to organization, even in a given summer, where a kid's just grabbing a jersey, grabbing a hat, and going and playing in some tournament and introducing himself to the kid playing next to him in the first inning. That's not what we're about. It's not the club baseball experience that I would want for our guys, but there's certainly a lot of that out there.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the secondary effect of that is the potential for injury. If because a lot of times the kid's not going to speak up and say, "Hey, I pitched yesterday," and unfortunately, sometimes the parents aren't even tuned in enough to say, "Hey, he pitched yesterday. He can't throw today, or he can't throw this weekend." So, listen, man, Dan Sullivan, Nokona Baseball. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed getting to know you, and I enjoyed learning more about your organization. Do you have any sort of parting words of wisdom for the 2 or 3 listeners who are still with us?
No, I just appreciate you having me on and highlighting our organization and allowing me to talk a little bit about it. And certainly down the road, we'd love to have you up at the facility and continue building a good relationship.
Oh man. Well, thanks again. I'll tell you what, hang on one second. I'm going to end the recording. Okay. Good place to stop.